Life, culture and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 with Neil Johnson on Vision.
The memories of buildings collapsing after those tragic earthquakes in Turkey and Syria are still fresh in our memories. Officials have confirmed that more than 40,000 people have lost their lives in those earthquakes and the aftershocks. But even now, weeks later, the danger hasn't passed. And we're aware of special needs that Christians have in nations that register on the Open Doors World Watch List, of nations that persecute Christians, and what happens when there's a disaster. Well, Jordan Gallagher Scott is a communications and PR specialist from Open Doors. Jordan's joining us. Jordan, welcome along to 2020.
Thanks so much for having me, Neil.
Jordan, what can you tell us from things you have heard from your partners on the ground in places like Syria about what's happened after the earthquakes?
Well, one of our local partners who I've been recently in contact with was sharing that actually just the signs of the devastation are everywhere. The buildings are still crumbled. And so even though I know that they would very much like to move on with their lives and start to rebuild and heal and process, it would be very, very difficult, and it is proving very difficult to do that with just the scale of devastation that is around them constantly, and still so many missing people. So it's a real scene of devastation at the moment.
We might assume that given the huge number of deaths from those earthquakes and the aftershocks, and because you partner with churches throughout Syria, that there might be a lot of grief that are going on in communities. Is there any word at all around the sorts of grief that people are feeling?
Absolutely. I think people are grieving people that they've lost, that they've loved. They're grieving the sadness of what's happened to their city. And in a place like Aleppo, which has seen 11 years of civil war, to now see a natural disaster on top of that, they're already a very vulnerable community. So, there's grief on multiple levels. And our local partner was saying that one of the greatest griefs that they're facing now is that their home, their safe place, their sanctuary, the place that they have their family in and they have people around to, and their safest place for many people has been taken from them. It's been destroyed, and there's no hope of going back to that. There's a lot of grief on so many levels right now. From multiple different corners of the human experience.
Jordan, what can you tell us about the work of Open Doors in those nations, Turkey and Syria, that have been hard hit here by the earthquakes?
Well, Open Doors' long-standing partnership with churches in the region has been such a blessing to Open Doors and also to the local church and the people that they've been able to help through this. Because of the sanctions that Syria is facing, there's actually only one UN-approved border crossing into Syria, and that is the Turkey-Syria border, which meant that international aid couldn't get into northern Syria for a long time, and still hasn't seen the level of international aid that somewhere like Turkey has seen. So it was actually critical that Open Doors partner churches were able to be on the front lines of this disaster, because there was very little international aid getting through. Our local partner said that there was, banners for one or two aid organizations, but aside from that, the main responders in a moment like this was the community and the local church. And so we saw the local church just swinging open their doors, letting people in. Pastors were sleeping in plastic chairs at the front door, making sure that every time someone came in, they were greeted and they got what they needed and they were well taken care of, and they had something warm to eat and to cover themselves in. So, it was absolutely critical that the church were able to respond, and because of the support of the Australian church for the work of Open Doors, it meant that we could support the local church in that crisis.
And Jordan, just to clarify for listeners, when someone gives Australian dollars to support Open Doors and the work that they do in Syria and places like Turkey, and that finance makes its way into local church partners, and they're churches, they're Christians, and they're in nations where there is often dramatic and high levels of persecution. It really is not only a support for the Christian believers, but also what overflows from that to a needy community also brings a witness of Christ. How do you describe those sorts of things as they happen in nations like Syria and in Turkey?
Oh, absolutely. I think that something that I've seen through all of this and staying connected and being able to talk to local partners on the ground has been what a privilege it is to support the church in a place like Syria, where they are living as the hands and feet of Jesus. They are a beacon of light and hope. One of our local partners, her name is Layla, just this last week, she shared a story of a woman who said that the reason that she thinks that this has happened is that it got her out of her house and able to witness to the community and to share the love and hope of Jesus, that this life is temporary and that there's eternal hope in Jesus. And she feels like she's been able to do that more in the middle of this disaster than ever before. So it's truly incredible, and being able to enable these courageous, bold, loving, surrendered believers to support them to keep shining the light of Jesus in these countries is an absolute honor and a privilege for us at Open Doors, and we're grateful for the support of Australians who enable us to keep doing this.
And the very fact that there are church partners who continue to be a wonderful witness and an expression of Christ in the communities in places like Syria that's been racked by civil war, and of course the ISIS uprising over this past decade, these sorts of things, it's almost miraculous that there are churches there. And so special honour to those churches, but also to Open Doors, who helped sustain those churches through some very, very hard times. But it doesn't discount the fact, Jordan, that there are some special issues, aren't there, around relief and aid. When you are Christian in a place like Syria, sometimes you're not treated as being a first-class citizen, but a second-class citizen. Any thoughts here on how Christians have been suffering in places like Syria?
Yeah, unfortunately that is true. And Layla, who I was speaking to last week, she said that it's important that we keep supporting the church so that the church can keep helping Christians, because it is hard to imagine in a country like Australia the idea that just simply being a different religion could mean that you're treated differently. But unfortunately, when it does come to distribution of international aid, even employment, the rebuilding process, and different types of help, Christians can sometimes be left out of that, which is really heartbreaking. She said that most Syrian Christians that she knows would like to leave Syria, which is absolutely heartbreaking. So our goal at Open Doors is to strengthen what remains of the church in some of the darkest places in the world. So a lot of our heart and our mission is to come alongside the Syrian church and say, what is it that you need to keep following Jesus in a place like Syria, in a place where your existence is challenged and threatened, and the idea that you would remain in Syria is really difficult for you to fathom. How do we come alongside you and give you the support that you need to stay and remain and keep following Jesus there? And it's heartbreaking to think that that's their reality, but we do have the opportunity to come alongside them and to support them.
So when you've had those believers enduring civil war, enduring the ISIS uprising, and just on the other side of that, when you might hope things are going to stabilise, then you have earthquakes that destroy your homes. I'm wondering whether the thought that there are people who are even fearful about returning to their own homes because they're not stable and they might be death traps. Any thoughts here about the people and their homes?
Yeah, and And I saw even just in the news today that people who are in tents are having icicles growing inside of their tents because the weather is just so terrible. So it is a really heartbreaking situation. And part of the mission of Open Doors Local Partners is to actually help to physically rebuild. So the rebuilding will be trauma care and counselling and the emotional support that they need to heal, but it's also physical rebuilding. Our local partner said that they're aiming to rebuild 2,600 homes for families. So physically rebuilding brick and mortar homes to help them to recover. And I think one of the challenges is the ongoing help from the government is such that most people will be rebuilding their own homes. And so Open Doors Local Partners, these local churches want to be able to actually come alongside the most vulnerable people in their community and help them to physically rebuild their homes.
Okay, you've got Christian believers whose homes have been destroyed in the earthquakes, but partners on the ground in Syria with some access and some funding and some support that's coming from Australian donors that is going directly into those church partners. And now there's lots and lots of homes to be rebuilt as well. You've got a current appeal going on for people who go to the Open Doors website, opendoors.org.au. Is there a link on that website that people can use to give a gift today, Jordan?
Yep, absolutely. You can head to opendoors.org.au/give/Turkey and Syria earthquake emergency. And that will take you to our current appeal for Turkey and Syria. We are collecting funds right now to go toward our Centers of Hope. And Centers of Hope are what we call our partnerships with local churches on the ground in the Middle East. So everywhere where a church is partnering with Open Doors in the Middle East, that's called a Center of Hope. And this Center of Hope is equipped to give short-term medical relief and food, blankets, a warm place to stay, but also long-term help like trauma care and counselling and the rebuilding process that I mentioned earlier. So when you give today, you can give to our Centers of Hope and actually sponsor a local church to continue supporting the whole community off the back of this devastating earthquake.
No doubt it'll be huge, and those believers might not be able to rely on government support. It'll come via the church and Open Doors with partners in Syria. An opportunity to be able to give today to that appeal. Just go to opendoors.org.au and find those links for that Syria and Turkey appeal. Jordan Gallagher Scott is a communications and PR specialist from Open Doors. Jordan, thanks so much for updating us today on 2020.
Thanks for having me, Neil, and thank you so much for your support of our persecuted family in the Middle East right now.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.